And away we go. It's the DFS Early Bird presented by Awesemo.com, brought to you in part by Yahoo Sports. Their DFS offerings you can check out every day. Made mention of it just yesterday, but they've had a few management fee free days over the past couple of weeks. You want to stay tuned for those. And of course, NFL not too far away. So check out their DFS offerings each and every day. Dan Stravern, Adam Scher with you on this Saturday morning. Dan filling in for EMAC. Adam filling in for himself, for what it's worth. But we have a pretty terrible early slate that we're going to talk about on here. So might as well talk about Adam moving. Adam, are you prepared to move?
I am definitely not prepared to move. I went and bought a ton of stuff, just like plates and stuff
to be able to move, right?
Yeah. And so bought all that stuff, and I'm in the process of doing laundry right now. Get the keys tomorrow, but mainly just looking forward to a day of drinking with friends and watching Comcast probably mess things up.
Right, and that is the fun of moving. And congrats, one. That's a big move. I remember my first move from. I know you've moved before. It's not like I haven't done this before, but you moved. What, it was St. Louis?
I moved to St. Louis, I guess 3.5 years ago now, and then planned on staying out there when I finished law school, or when I quit law school. Sorry. But then stuff happened with my mom, so I moved back home. But finally getting back out and really excited about it.
Well, I mean, finished and quit, they're the same thing.
Yeah.
I mean, you were finished with law school. Law school was probably finished with you as well. So
pretty much.
It worked out well. And it worked out well for our viewers here on YouTube and the subs over at Awesemo.com, formerly obviously at FanVice as well. For those of you who don't know, Adam had his own show at FanVice when it first launched called The Atom Bomb, which he was one of the only analysts over there to have a show named after him. And that was
the only analyst.
Yeah, I mean, oh, you're telling me the Deeper Dive wasn't named after Lafayette? Okay, that's fine. No, but nonetheless, we are here on this Saturday to deal with an early slate of games. You'll get EMAC and myself for the MLB strategy show on Saturday. We'll talk early and late. The late slate seems to give us a little bit more of a palatable pitching slate. We'll talk about that on MLB strategy here. Adam and I will talk about this early slate, which does begin, I believe it's a 4:05 first pitch. San Francisco and Baltimore, Milwaukee, Pittsburgh, Kansas City, Texas, Washington, Cincinnati, and Detroit, Atlanta, all within 5 minutes of each other, which is nice. Now, this is an NBA, so it's not worried about lineups, but it is nice to have everything sort of go off at the same point. Have you seen, Adam, a worse pitching slate in this season of MLB DFS?
Probably, but
right.
So what makes this one so bad? It's not even the pitchers on it; it's the pricing. At least looking at DraftKings, they definitely took into account who the other pitchers on the slate are when determining the pricing.
Yeah, it is a stacked deck against you, and we'll probably get to a point where we just say pick as the cheap end of the pool as you can, and then enjoy some offensive stacks. But we'll go through it. We'll give you a preview of what early on here we might be looking at from a pitching perspective. We'll talk about the top stacks, and again, you get EMAC and myself on the MLB strategy show. You get some more YouTube videos as well throughout the day. And you also get, is Lofty writing for you? Did you switch that as well for the deep dive?
No, I'm writing when we finish this.
Okay, so you get the deep dive from Adam, the write-up. That is behind the paywall. To get that, you need to be a member of Awesemo.com. That comes with the projections. It comes with the lineup builder. It comes with ownership projections. That's all, again, behind the paywall. Use the promo code EARLYBIRD, one word, to get in on that. We will touch on DraftKings mainly here. I'll reference some FanDuel pricing as well, where the mood strikes me. But let's talk through here this pitching. And Mike Soroka has been great, but I would not call him an ace, but he's priced as an ace here, 10-9. I guess he's pitched like an ace, but still some question marks around his long-term viability at this rate, at what he's been doing thus far. And then you have Lance Lynn and Brendan Woodruff above 10K, Tanner Roark at 9.6. Feedy is at 8.1. Norris, 7,500. Anderson out of San Francisco, 72. And then you get cheap Homer Bailey at 57, Kingham at 53, and Hess at 42. Top end, Soroka against Detroit would seem to stand out as a good play, right? On any other given slate, if Soroka was between 8-5 and 9-5, you'd consider him here. 10-9 against Detroit. Is he far and away the best play here simply because of what he's done this year and Detroit striking out as much as they do?
I think I think it's him and Woodruff are the two best. I mean, Detroit strikes out a ton, whereas Pittsburgh doesn't, so that gives Soroka the edge. Woodruff, I think, is a better strikeout pitcher than Soroka is. So, you would lean there. Like Woodruff's strikeout percentage this year is 29%, whereas Soroka is down at 22%. So, kind of whichever you like, they're both good options. They're both good pitchers. One has a better matchup. One has better strikeout stuff. Soroka against righties this year has held them to a 262 xWOBA, ISO well below 100. So a really good spot for Soroka. It's just a matter of finding the money for him.
Right. 10-9 seems circumspect that we may be able to get there, but we'll talk through each of these options quickly. You made mention of Woodruff. Lance Lynn against Kansas City in Texas. Have not looked yet at the weather here, but assume this is another 85-degree day in Texas. I think Lance Lynn has been fine and has done a good job as a major league pitcher, but I just have no real interest in rostering Lynn and or his counterpart in this one, Homer Bailey, in what should be a pretty high offensive game. Haven't seen a spread as of yet. I'll take a look here momentarily. Let's take a look. Saturday the 1st, we have minus 160 for Texas, 10.5 over under. Can't say I'm too surprised there. Any interest in Lance Lynn, or is this simply a game where hope that people roster him simply because of price point and a lack of other pitching options, and you stack some Royals to try to pick up on some offense?
Yeah, I don't really have interest in Lynn. Kansas City is not pushover offense. They have some strikeouts, but they're a pretty dangerous offense and a good park for hitting. Lynn has been good this season, but he's priced up as well. I really can't justify going to Lynn over Woodruff when Woodruff faces, pitches in a better park. He's facing a Pittsburgh team that I don't think is as dangerous as the Royals are, and Woodruff's a better pitcher than Lynn is. So to me, it's, if you're paying up, it's Lynn or Soroka. Not Lynn, it's Soroka or Woodruff.
And there's the slip. But I do think to point out, again, this is very early as we record this, potential for some weather in Pittsburgh, a little bit of projected rain. Nothing too crazy, but potential for maybe some thunderstorms in the area throughout the day. I don't think it's going to really affect, again, very early on here, not trying to project weather 12 to 14 hours in advance, especially when it comes to baseball getting played or not. But that is something to at least consider for this Pittsburgh-Milwaukee game. Yet Woodruff, we've already talked about. Roark, Feedy, Daniel Norris against Atlanta, in Atlanta, Anderson. Where else are we going? So is it simply a slate where we say between Hess, Kingham, and maybe Anderson, we pick the pitcher who sucks the least and go for it?
Yeah, I mean, or you just take the cheapest one. I mean, Hess is $4,200 facing the Giants. He's terrible, but he's $4,200. Basically, you just hope he doesn't go negative. Recently, when I've tried to do that, they have gone negative every time. But that, still normally doesn't happen. You can salvage with 6-7 points or whatever. But if you're going 4,200 with Hess, it does open up the overpriced Woodruff and Soroka for you. It'll let you get whatever bats that you want. So getting there is fine. Anderson has a nice matchup against the Orioles. He's a better pitcher than Hess. That kind of goes without saying. He's ranked on FanGraphs as the Giants' number 8 prospect. He hasn't been throwing a lot of innings. He's averaging 5 innings per start over 3 starts. But Steamer projects him for 7.3 Ks per 9. At AAA this year, he was also averaging 5 innings per start, struck out 9.5 per 9. I think he's just a pretty average pitcher that faces the Orioles.
Yeah, and that can have some upside, but I pointed out a couple of times on this podcast, the Orioles aren't that bad in offense. We got into sort of a trend of seeing them as the worst of the worst, but they've been middle of the pack a lot of the season and have some power upside. Now some of the bats they're bringing up will strike out a bit, but there is also some talent there. There are guys that they think have at least a little bit of upside and have shown it over the course of the past few weeks. Any name here in the mid, Roark, Feedy, Norris, anybody else worth mentioning, or are you willing to talk about a couple of bats here and then close out the podcast?
Yeah, I don't think there's anything. I mean, outside of the obligatory, it's 5 games. If you're playing 150 lineups, you might have every pitcher. Outside of that kind of mention, there's not really anything like Eric Fedde. Eric Fedde's not anything special. I don't think it's a tough park in Cincinnati. Tanner Roark sure as hell isn't anything special. He's expensive. It's not a great matchup against the Nats. Nick Kingham is really cheap. Like if you don't want to go to Hess in Baltimore, you can go to Kingham for 1,100 more in Pittsburgh. Brutal matchup though against Milwaukee, especially for a guy that struggles with lefties. Daniel Norris is whatever. I mean, it's the mid range is just so ugly that I would be inclined to go stars and scrubs at pitcher and just hope that my guy doesn't lose me points.
On this slate, Daniel Norris is the most likely to smoke marijuana when you look at their headshots over there on FanDuel. He's not the one with the – is he the one with the van? Is that Daniel? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I was going to say most people that
never mind.
That got a $1 million signing bonus and chose to live in a van, I think, regardless of headshot, are the most likely to smoke marijuana.
Right. As they say up in my neck of the woods, irregardless of what you think, he is probably lighting up a fatty from time to time. The fact of the matter is it's an ugly pitching slate. And so strategy-wise, Adam, FanDuel's not priced that differently. Now, it's a little bit cheaper on the pitching side, and we've seen that all year. It's nothing different there, but you have Soroka at 10.3, Woodruff at 9.5, Lynn at 9K. Are you approaching this any differently from a cruncher / projection perspective? Are you changing anything, or is this simply 5 games? You have the pitching you have, and you're going to the same strategy you've employed each and every slate?
I think one way you could get creative here is normally I don't like rostering hitters against my pitchers on anything more than like 4 games, despite the fact that I did it a ton last night, but that was by accident. But on this slate,
that sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, it wasn't. So on this slate, I wouldn't want to roster against Soroka or Woodruff or whatever pitcher sure. I'm overpaying for. I don't want to be taking bats against them. But you can really be contrarian on this slate because you can take like Hess and the Giants bat, or if you somehow have Homer Bailey, who's not any worse than Hess, you can take a Rangers bat. And it basically just, they're so cheap, and it's not like any of them project well. They certainly can give up a couple home runs and still get the 5 or 6 points that they're probably going to project for. But people just don't do that. So it puts you in a kind of unique position where there's only so many different roster construction ways that you can go on a slate like this. But you can be contrarian just by taking, Joey Gallo against Homer Bailey, because it's a phenomenal spot for Gallo, but people are just not going to do it.
Right. Bailey and Gallo was one of the 2 names that came up for when you start talking Hess and Brennan Belt. Right. Like, so find that power bat that has the upside for maybe even 2 home runs once the starter's out. Makes a ton of sense on this shorter slate with bad pitching. What's the stacks? I mean, it's pretty straightforward here, but from an offensive perspective, which bats and maybe some one-offs or guys that you think are in the best spots from an offensive perspective. And then I may pepper some late slate questions at you quickly here just to give the people what they want.
Yeah. Left-handed power against Kingham is appealing. So getting to that, Yelich, Moustakas, Grandal mini stack at the very least, I think is a good spot to be. Right. The righties against Norris. So Acuna and Donaldson really stick out from Atlanta. You mentioned Brandon Belt, you mentioned Gallo, anyone else on Texas too. But against Roark, I guess you have Matt Adams is 3,900 on DraftKings in a nice park shift. So I think he's probably going to be really popular, but he's one of the better point per dollar plays.
All right, quickly here for the night slate. And this is a very early look, and Adam's pulling up numbers on the fly here. So don't hold specific take on anything here. But it's amazing the stark contrast of just how the schedule worked out, that our 4 p.m. had what it has. And then the night games are Verlander, Kershaw, DeGrom, Greinke, Herman, John Gray, Margevicius, Quintana. Just a little bit of a different flavor here when it comes to...
Margevicius is back?
Yeah.
Oh, God. I honestly didn't think he would ever pitch in the major leagues again.
Yeah, recall for Saturday's start against the Marlins, which is an intriguing one there for Margevicius at 6,900. Nice. I have to say that. I'm contractually obligated to over on DK. But pricing and the actual assets, the roster we can create with some of these pitchers is much better. Let's quickly hear, if you don't mind, some of the pitchers you'd look at most, not who you'd be rostering, but if you were working on writing up this slate, which you are, but if you're looking at writing up this slate or doing a podcast specifically on the night slate and you want to do a little bit more research, what names would you throw at now to give some of our listeners a key on what they should be looking at once they lock their early lineups on Saturday?
So, I mean, the obvious are Verlander and Kershaw, but looking at the pricing on DraftKings is what I have in front of me. Both pitchers in Arizona are very affordable, Jacob deGrom and Zach Greinke. It's DeGrom's been, kind of shaky this year by his standards, but it's not a bad spot against Arizona. And then on the other side, it's a good spot for Greinke against the Mets. So those two stand out. And then John Gray at only 7,400. He's at home, but facing the Blue Jays, there's plenty of upside there for a pitcher like Gray. So those are the three that I think stand out, towards the top. And then if you wanted a cheap SP2, Jose Urena in San Diego, only $5,700, facing a right-handed heavy Padres lineup, I think should be fine.
It's crazy to see, and I'm not necessarily recommending. Again, I haven't looked at the slate in some, but this Houston team is depleted. Like, you deal with no Altuve, no Correa, no Springer. I haven't seen any news that either of those three will be back, and I get the idea that Brantley and the Reddicks of the world have been cheap. Brett Anderson's 5,400 in Oakland, which is a nicer pitcher's park. I don't know that I'm overly comfortable going here, but I do think you have, between Urena and Anderson, two cheap options to pair with one of those top-end pitchers. This slate seems much more appealing than the early slate, from at least feeling better about your lineups, right? Feeling a little bit more like you know what's going on and how it should turn out. The early slate, the pitching, you're going to have to get crazy with your roster construction. Understand it's a high ceiling, low floor sort of slate where anything can happen. You have lots of upside for crazy scores, whereas the night slate feels a little bit more controlled and understood. Any bats or stacks here on this early slate, or maybe rephrase, is it stacking against Malone, Stroman, and Irvin here mainly between the Dodgers, the Rockies, and the LA Angels of Anaheim?
I like the Dodgers a lot. I think maybe they go a little bit overlooked because of the lefty-lefty matchup, but all their lefties hit lefties well. So I think that's a pretty interesting spot. If you're looking for cheap bats, Markovich just is still terrible. So you can go to the Marlins. They are really cheap. And then, Colorado, the Colorado game, obviously, but especially but like both pitchers are decent. Stroman's an extreme ground ball pitcher, fastball slider primarily. He should be okay there, but it's still Coors Field. So, of course you can look there.
All right. I think we're going to leave it there. As I said, you get Emac and myself for the Strategy Show over on YouTube. As always, subscribe, like, check the bell so you get the notifications for our videos over there on Yahoo, on YouTube for the Awesemo crew. You can get all of the live streams as well as the DFS Early Bird. You get the Four Corners video from Spags and so much more available to you for free. And if you want to take that step further and get all the content that's behind the paywall, the projections, the ownership projections, the lineup builder, of course, the deep dive that Adam is writing on Saturday. He writes Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. Lofty, you get Monday, Wednesday, Friday. You need to subscribe. Use the promo code EarlyBird. For Adam, find him on Twitter, Ship My Money DFS, body bagging other DFS pros on a regular basis. If you didn't, I probably shouldn't go here, but holy hell, Adam, that was impressive. But that was you didn't do anything. That was the impressive part. You didn't do a damn thing.
Yeah, normally I kind of instigate things, and normally I'm at least partially at fault when things happen, but I feel pretty good about that one. Yeah,
it's I'm sure many people have seen the Pulp Fiction and have seen the gif of John Travolta doing the look around, like trying to figure I'm reading it going, what the hell happened here? Like, what did I miss? How did this all unfold? And how did it escalate? It's that from Anchorman. Well, that escalated quickly. But nonetheless, check it out. It's fun. And lighten up, Francis. With that said, find me on Twitter at Dan Shavard. As I said, at Ship My Money DFS for Adam. And best of luck with the move. You'll hear from Adam during the week. You'll hear from me again on the Early Bird on Monday with Lofty_D. Best of luck on this early and late slate for Saturday. You've been listening to the DFS Early Bird presented by Awesemo.com.